The Mississippi River, Mighty Miss, Old Man River, whatever you call it, the name conjures up images of legends and legacies. Today, a special look at this artery of America, from the river's early days to the people that make it special today. He's been called the original river rat. You'll call Kenny Solway a true friend of the Mississippi. And we'll find out what troubles Old Man River today, who will win the battle between man and Mother Nature. We'll offer some answers. We met a woman who would rather talk clams than, well, talk about anything else. You'll meet the Clam Lady. Come along as we go exploring the Bluff Country.
And now your host, award-winning outdoor journalist, Ron Schara, and his dog, Raven.
So, Raven, how you doing, pal? Huh? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. And we do have a very special program for you today because it's all about a very special place, the Upper Mississippi River Valley, as it flows between Minnesota and Wisconsin. It's a land very different from the rest of the Mississippi River Valley. We call it a visit to Bluff Country.
Sit along the river and watch it flow by and wonder, where did the water come from? Where is it going to? Will it ever come back again? And so the river is very special.
Yeah, I've come to this spot for many, many years. It's one of my favorite places to come. One time we came up here at 4 in the morning and we were treated to probably one of the most spectacular sunrises I ever saw in my life.
I always love rivers because they tend to be wilder than lakes. Like they say, you never step in the same river twice.
The hills I always think of them as like ancient watchmen that stand guard over the river, the Upper Mississippi. And it's so magnificent, the beauty and the magnitude, and it's like a magnet. You can go away from it, but you always long to see the river again.
I've had similar thoughts driving the great river road through Bluff Country in the fall. Its hardwood forests, full of color, towering bluffs proclaim the majesty of nature's handiwork and dwarf the giant barges hauling grain and other cargo up and down the river's shifty currents. The sloughs and backwaters of the mighty Mississippi teem with 50 species of mammals, 37 species of mussels, 241 species of fish, and millions of ducks, geese, and swans that use the river valley on their migration every year. The Upper Mississippi River Valley is one of the great natural features of the North American continent. Geologists call Bluff Country the driftless zone, the parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri that the glaciers never drifted over. You can see the sandstone and limestone on the ancient ocean floor, lifted high, then worn away by the meltwater from the glaciers. The Mississippi River and the beautiful bluffs that watch over it are the Glacier River's legacy, the North Country's Grand Canyon. When early French explorers traveled the upper river, they met and traded with the native peoples. Their cooperation echoes in the names of river towns like Dubuque, Prairie du Chien, La Crosse, and further north, towns with the names of native people, Winona, Wabasha, and Red Wing. Upriver, Father Lewis Hennepin had discovered the beginnings of Bluff Country, the highest and only falls on the Mississippi River. He named it for his patron saint, Anthony. Here, the river first cuts through limestone bedrock to form Bluff Country. The cities of St. Anthony and Minneapolis grew from sawmills powered by the falls. The first Minnesota cities, Stillwater on the St. Croix River, St. Paul, Winona, St. Anthony, were Bluff Country river towns. Early settlers depended on the river valley for their necessities. They drank and ate from its waters, traveled the river and its tributaries, powered log mills and flour mills, built cities, and flushed their waste down the river.
The third largest river in the world. It drains 33 states. It's 1.5 million square miles.
As eternal as the Father of Waters seems to be, humans have changed the river dramatically. to suit our needs. Today, the need for industry and living space and transportation often conflict with the needs for clean water and habitat for wildlife and recreation. To balance these competing needs, young people and their elders have to learn more about this vast, complex ecosystem that we call bluff country.
Well, as you can see, the bluff country is a varied and interesting land, but then so are the people who live there. Most of them call themselves river rats, but in our next story, you're going to meet the original river rat. He is one of the most interesting people I've ever met, and you're going to find out why.
For all of his life, Ken Solway has explored the backwaters of the Mississippi River. With Spider the Black Lab, Solway has poled his way through thousands of acres of islands and channels where the Mississippi flows between Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, it took a long time. I walked a lot of circles, but I know every piece of it.
By any definition, Solway is a bona fide river rat.
Shot squirrels when I was 8, 9 years old with a little single-shot .22, and always fished, and a lot of my relatives lived the way I do, hunting rattlesnakes, digging ginseng, trapping, hunting.
Solway's one-room shack is a mirror of his life on the Mississippi.
That's an old ice saw that I found out in the swamp.
Inside, the walls and ceiling are covered with river memories, as well as its drying treasures, delicious morel mushrooms gathered last spring.
This is ginseng plants right here that are drying, the plants.
Solway says there's a story behind everything he's collected, including his bunk bed.
Yeah, I call this the boar's nest. This generally gets made about twice a year, whether it needs it or not.
But in many ways, Solway is a man from a different time, an earlier time. On a necklace, Solway carries a spiritual symbol, a dried foot of a turtle.
The turtle is a symbol of longevity. The turtle moves very slowly, so do I. Talk slow, walk slow, drive slow. I believe life's too short to hurry through it. The turtle was the first mobile home ever made, so he don't have to be in a hurry to go home. He's at home wherever he is, so am I.
Solway was at home for more than 40 years, content to cook over a wood fire and sustain his body and soul on what the river provides.
The venison. This is venison. Making a little gravy here. I was not a good student, to say the least. Always looking out the schoolhouse windows, wanting to be outside. I tried various things, like gainful employment, and I just didn't hit it off real well.
Instead of salary and benefits, Solway chose the river, nature study, and reading.
Well, the river is, I guess I could liken it to my very blood. I owe much to the river.
But over the years, Solway also knew something was wrong upstream. He saw the river's siltation and pollution. He also realized he had to share his love of the river with others.
Be careful on the dock.
A dozen years ago, Solway began teaching others about the river.
That was the beginning of a new life for me when I actually came out of the swamp. Began to go to schools and nature centers.
Today, Solway the River Rat has become Solway the River Guide.
Anybody know what kind of tree this is? I believe in the young folks. People have always said that the young folks are going to hell in a handcart. We heard it. Every generation hears it. And I believe we need to focus on the positive.
On a short walk, his nature lessons flow as easily as the river.
You know what this is? This is prickly ash. Prickly ash bark is good for toothaches.
Solway also shares stories about his days as a fur trapper
Like this,
and the lessons he's learned about life and death.
How many of you folks have ever killed a critter. You go to McDonald's, you say, give me a Big Mac. Bossy dies when we eat hamburgers, you see. Couldn't make it far without my walking stick.
It's in the faces of his young audience that Solway sees a bright future for his beloved river.
I have a lot of hope. I believe, like I said, in the children. Education is the key to solving problems. And it's not how we do it, it's whether we do it. And it's not when we do it, it's that we do it sometime.
Find yourself a beautiful vista and you'll think this river is paradise. But beneath that scene, there's trouble below. And walking the shores, you too might run into the clam lady. We did, and she brought us, well, out of our shell.
Good girl. That's a good girl. Hey, thanks for sticking with us. You know, the popularity of bluff country has meant a couple of things. One, it's attracted crowds. Crowds to our cities and crowds to the country, meaning more intensive farming. Between the cities and the farming, it's meant trouble. We call it trouble in River City.
The Mississippi River, the Upper Midwest Frontier Highway. Like highways today, the river brought traffic, and more traffic meant the river had to change. We leveed it, and diked it, and dammed it, and locked it. In the 1930s, the Upper River got road signs and intersections, a system of 29 locks and dams.
What that has caused is the river to become more of a channelized stream as opposed to a free-flowing river that, when it does flood, can flood the wetlands and other areas as well.
More than 18 million people depend on the river for drinking water, and some of the animal species that depend on the river's natural flood and drought cycles have lost habitat and population. Some have disappeared.
River biologists that are looking at the quality of the river from any number of perspectives are telling us that this is an ecosystem that really is on the verge of collapse. You look, for example, at the once very rich largemouth bass fishery in parts of the river, and that fishery is crashing right now.
The problem is sedimentation, fine sediments from farmland trapped in the big lakes that form behind each lock and dam.
And the importance of that to, say, fisheries is that our backwater communities, the bluegills, the largemouth bass, they have areas where they winter. Those areas over the years have filled in, and so we're losing much of our wintering area.
Those sediments carry pesticides and fertilizers too, from tributaries like the Wisconsin River and the Minnesota River. The Minnesota River has been called the largest polluter of the Mississippi River. Taxpayers spent $129 million in 1995 to keep the 9-foot deep navigation channel open for barge traffic. The Army Corps of Engineers dredges 1 million tons of sediment in the St. Paul district alone. Man-made islands of sediment dot the river. And now the barge industry, which pays no user fees, wants taxpayers to improve the locks and dams.
The problem is that the Corps of Engineers and the barge interests are looking at a significant expansion of barge traffic, an expansion of locks and dams facilities, a lengthening of those facilities to allow even larger barges. We feel that that's going in the wrong direction.
Water quality, on the other hand, is going in the right direction. In 1938, Minneapolis and St. Paul built the first wastewater treatment plant on the Upper Mississippi. But when it rained hard, the plant overflowed. So in the early 1970s, the Twin Cities diverted its stormwater runoff from the sewage plant, and the water downstream has been improving ever since. But river towns, my own Twin Cities included, are now rediscovering the river, redeveloping the riverfront, and restoring the frontier's first highway.
I think we have a ways to go, Ron, and I guess I wouldn't be here talking to you if we didn't have some of these concerns. But I think there's reason to be optimistic that this river can be turned around, absolutely.
The Mississippi River is full of promise for the future. Despite its problems, there's plenty of reason to believe this is a river of hope. That story next.
You know, the Upper Mississippi River is such a marvelous place. It has lots of friends and government agencies assigned to make sure the river runs forever. Well, our next story is one of hope, as officials from Wisconsin and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have embarked on a unique program to restore some of the waterfowl habitat along Old Man River.
What kind of bird numbers are out here?
John Wetzel and Jim Nissen help manage part of the Upper Mississippi River National Wildlife Refuge, almost 500,000 acres stretching 300 miles from Lake Pepin to Rock Island, Illinois.
It's kind of unique because, of course, with this long refuge, there's
Congress created the River Refuge in 1924, and 6 years later authorized a 9-foot navigation channel. As a result, the Upper Mississippi Refuge has two often contradictory mandates: commercial navigation and a refuge for wildlife.
Anytime you close a dam on a river, you start siltation process behind it. And so all these pools, if things continue like they are with no one doing anything else, are going to fill in over time. So there's a gradual loss of habitat, there's change. I guess the only constant out here is change.
The change in Pool 8 near La Crosse, Wisconsin, has been dramatic since the lock and dam system began operating in 1939. The islands in Pool 8 have simply disappeared. Today, the river is more like a series of windswept lakes. But the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and others are working with the Corps of Engineers to reestablish islands in the river, and as a result, restore duck habitat. It's a sign of hope for the Mississippi.
The Corps is now interested in looking at lower Pool 8, and can you use a navigation project to work, wonders in the environmental arena too.
The project is now showing signs of success, as wild celery in Lake Onalaska in Pool 7 north of La Crosse is coming back in the shadow of these islands. And with it come scuds, a favorite food of sunfish and migrating waterfowl.
Someplace around here was a nest. That's how we mark them.
On these isolated islands,
here we are.
mallard ducks make their nests free of predation, with hatch rates of 80% compared to 20% on shore.
We're just starting to learn where to put some of these islands.
The good news is, as more islands are recreated or restored, the river's health flows better every day. When most moms are at work or watching the kids, this mom is talking clams. Meet Miriam Havlick, the clam lady, who has a reputation for flexing her muscles along the banks of the mighty Miss.
You know, earlier you met a true river rat. Well, now you're going to meet the clam lady. You may not know this, but clams are to the river what the canary is to miners. In other words, clams tell of the health of the river. Well, somebody had to watch the clams, and it is the clam lady. You just watch.
See? That one's called a fawn split.
When Marion Havlick meets a youngster on the banks of the river, clams are sure to be the topic of conversation.
This is the first place where my daughter, when she was about 10, 11 years old, where we started finding live mussels. And it's just a nice place to come for a family picnic, and that's what we started doing. We look for shells here. Oh, look up there. You know what's on that one?
Ooh, snail.
Yeah, there's a snail on that one. How about that?
Those picnics changed Marion's life. When her daughter made freshwater mussels a grade school science project 25 years ago, Marion started research, and she hasn't stopped since. Today, she's one of the country's foremost advocates for the preservation of mussels and their habitat. But she is worried.
Barge traffic like this and the resulting dredging and other activities that they have to do in the river obviously don't do very much for freshwater mussels. It's just like a giant mixer in there, and you can just see the difference in the mussel populations, the bottom sediments. You have deposition of silt where there wasn't much before.
When she admires her strand of unique pearls from freshwater mussels, Marion Havlick has hope for change for her favorite critter.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our visit to Bluff Country. The Mississippi River, as you know, is a very valuable resource to America. But we also found it's become a river of optimism. As up and down, folks are determined to make sure the river continues to run as it always has. There might be some health problems here and there, but for sure, the old man is a long ways from dying. Until next time, remember, introduce a kid to the great outdoors. I'm Ron Schara. What do you say, Raven? What are you doing?
Transportation provided by Rudy Luther's Brookdale Pontiac GMC truck. Air travel arrangements by Gage Outdoor Expeditions. For comments or to purchase a video, call or write Schara Communications.